manje lema ipheli. Sithi khocoba, sithi dumelang, rumelang, sithi qum, sithi khocuba, sithi qaitseb, qaitukhub, sithi qaya, sithi qamagu. We're just starting. Sandile, how many clicks do you think were there in Setswana? Originally, I think there were 5 basic cliques throughout Southern Africa. I think there were 5 basic cliques throughout Southern Africa. The 5th one being the bilabial. And this is, you can see the consistency of these bilabial words like puti, budi, mpiti, piri. You see the piti. You see a lot of these words that have pi, ompu, pumpu, ombu, bumbu, omvu, like pula. All those words, always, when you look at their click counterpart, it's the bilabial. So there's a clear, commonality across these languages in Southern Africa, where the bilabial click is always codified as the bilabial consonants, like MP, PH, P, B, MB, BH, etc. So that would be the 5th click. The other click is the palatal click, in contrast to the dental, the lateral, and the alveolar dental click. And you see, so it's 5 primary clicks, but then there's other clicks that are in between. So they are not exactly these ones, like the double, we write it with double exclamation marks. It's it's double exclamation. See, that is a very rare click. It's a very rare click, but you find it in words like the word for rain being you find that click as So yeah, I would then say there could have been about 7 clicks in total, but then over time they get softened or changed, etc. So yeah, that is the story of the clicks. But before we start, we have to do our nice prayer, which is music for us. It's music for us. Please share the live. Yo, Greetings. Madume. Ay! Kujamba salongolisa ngomsuthu ngucanzi kusanza lesanzonza kwathi gqi umntu ngusandlala nca gugeqa amatye ngupheka iphempim neqhawukubha ngengxawana ngurhwala emgodleni nguthekwa ngobulembe entabeni isincola ngamhluza amanzi ekhona madoda ndiphuma kwarharhabe mna kwantsinga kanomagwayi wasembo kasingasiya mhla singasimhla sisiya kwazamazama ilizwe lizamazama kwasibala mdaka kusambatha zimfutshane kanti zomlingana kube izinto uthi zimfihla amadolo. People are asking what is the agenda for today. No, the agenda is our matters. Imicimbi yasekhaya, that is the agenda. You know, sometimes you don't plan, you just handle whatever comes. So yeah, there's no actual plan, but I do have just an outline of what I want to talk about. But yeah, there is no actual agenda. Besides the actual agenda, which is to free the minds of my people from the lies, the colonial lies. So perhaps I'm going to start talking about place names, touch on clan names here and there. I see the women behind me. They've got some nice dreadlocks or locks. I know people are like, no, we don't use the word dread. There's nothing to dread about dreadlocks. Okay, it's all right. If you must. We might as well not use European names altogether, you know. You know, the woke group, like, no, the word dreadlock is wrong. It's locks, it's not dread. It's all European, man. Yeah, it's all European. So we might as well just cut the whole thing. Just cut the whole nonsense. You know, Mzimkhulu Kawa, there in Botswana, there's a place called Kawa there. I don't know if you know it. But there's a place called Kawa there, where our Kakangus, just not far from Kakangus. Now, Kakangus is what people call Tue Refieren. You see, the place called Tue Refieren, that's Kakangus. So there, not far from Kakangus, towards the east, there's a place called Kawa. And it's interesting that your surname is Kawa. I know even I think it's your grandfather, the one who wrote the book. Utata u-RT Kawa. Greetings Sukwini. Camagu Sukwini. Vabaiketile kuthiwa mnqayile inqindi madoda. Trongo ivenkile school party ibhoke yamasikelo handle. Camagu Sukwini. We have a tram gentleman here joining us. He deals a lot with your First Nation what. Camagu Sukwini Camagu. You know in tram I would say Trabe tixa. That means greetings, my brother. Amaxhosa would say, Kawam. We're gonna start just now. Don't worry. We're gonna start just now. You know, ours is a spiritual work. It's like we're doing intellectual and psychological surgery when we do this kind of work. So we have to be very sensitive about this work. Greetings. ubusuku obuhle mfukweni. Phoka amazulu seyiphunga seyiphunga. Amagu ndizalwe emanzothweni ke mna ke konyelenzi komaphanga konqale konqake nqanqasini koxuxa koqhamu kowele kogwadela komgqwetho kohobe phambili impunzi ngaseve ubutyane ethunga domba semazothweni hoyini bafazi bentshikizi. Le ntsholo niyayiphazama nithabatha isidoda ngoma lehlatyelwa isifazi nguNtsiba nkulu kayithu nguntaba kahili ngusiqa somelezwa zentshaba. Nguhoyini bafazi bentsikizi. Ndizalwa apho ke mna ke ndingumzukulwana phaya amampehle ke ngocabashe ngookomo zibomvu ngodikana ngolubisi ngoyibeka bakulokani. Ndizalwa ke mna ke yinto ngunyana kamamhlane amantlane ke ngontlanga ngonqabane ngoziqelekazi ngongqungqushe ngozihlamba ngobenda amanzi ekhona. Nantso ke we are starting, my people. I just wanted to start with the background, the photo here on my back, but just confirm for me if the network is good. You know, sometimes 5G, when there's bad weather, sometimes 5G starts doing its shenanigans. So much for improved technology. Sometimes you just wish to go back to 3G and 2G, eh? Let's just use walkie-talkies once and for all. Let's go back to 1G. My people, here we have this Xhoxhen Ude or Xhoxhen women. These are Xhoxhen people, Xhoxhen, right? I want you to take note of the hairstyles amongst these women, and I want you to notice she has something that is trickling down from the hair. Then I want you to notice the people who do the initiates in the Mbande rite of passage to become sangomas. I want you to notice that they also do the same hair. And then I want you to notice that old pictures of amahlubi or amazocho or some amampondo even, they tended to do similar types of hair. Now in isiZulu, this hair was called izyendane or umyeko. Now when I say isiZulu, I refer to that group of languages, right? Now in isiXhosa, this hair is called ivitane. Now the reason why I'm pointing this out is because I had come across lies in the past that somehow this hair is connected back to the Maasai, because the Maasai also do similar hair and stuff like that. So that means the people who do this hair come from there. And such arguments always confound me. They absolutely discombobulate me, you know. They absolutely confuse me. How an adult is gonna come and look at this and think, oh, you have the same hair as people who are about 100,000 kilometers away from you. That means you're the same people. Nothing else. I just base it on the fact that there's similar hairstyles that I'm noticing. That's how low the bar is. Another one's gonna be like, oh, I saw Sudanese dancing like Xhosa people. That means Xhosa people are from Sudan. Yay! Another one will be like, oh, the Ethiopian dance, it's similar to the Xhosa dance. That means Xhosa people are from Ethiopia. Like, if you collect all these claims together, you realize we are from everywhere, nigga. But South Africa. We're from everywhere but South Africa. Because how many skeletons have been unearthed in the Drakensberg Mountains? How many skeletons have been unearthed in Botswana with people who are missing a finger, like we do in the Eastern Cape and in KZN? We cut some parts of our fingers. But nobody wants to say, oh, these fingers, they have a missing index or a missing part, a missing phalange. That means South Africans come from here. which would make more sense, really, because the cutting of the finger is much more significant. It's much more significant because it's something that is considered as necessary. And it has to be done from generation to generation. Nobody does that. And you wonder why. Why is it that when we see things that push our people outside of the country, people are going to try to claim and validate those things that push our people outside the country? But when we see things that validate our people's indigeneity in this country, somehow nobody says anything. It's similar to this garbage of South Africans being xenophobic, which is absolute nonsense. Which is absolute nonsense. We know it's complete and utter nonsense. In fact, the people who are xenophobic, it is the government of the Congo. It's the Tinubu. Bola Tinubu is the xenophobe, yeah. Because if you're going to destroy the infrastructure of your country, destroy the economy of your country, not maintain roads, have a country that suffers with public defecation and extreme poverty, and you don't do anything to fix those problems, you are the xenophobic one. You are xenophobic. I said this long ago that African leaders, it's like those things that people say, boys will be boys. It's the same thing when it comes to African leaders. Man, it's African leaders. You know, what do you expect? With South Africa, no, xenophobic. You want your country to be clean? You're xenophobic. You want your country to, your people to have jobs? You guys are xenophobic. You should let the country be destroyed. And you've got these pseudo-intellectuals, Ombuyiseni Ndlozi, or Amahle Jacks, who are going to come and make noise. Blah, 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 blah. They don't even walk outside at night in their own country. They are scared, those bloody bastards of pseudo-intellectuals. But they are so loud here on TikTok, bloody keyboard warriors. They can't even spend a night by the border and survive that night. Most of them would not even make it through a few hours because of the bad things that are happening there. Women being raped day in and day out in that bloody border. They wouldn't even be able to walk from the beginning of Long Street in Cape Town to the end of Long Street in Cape Town. But they're so loud here behind the screens. If anybody is xenophobic, it's the government of these countries. That's where the real xenophobia is. Anyway, back to the topic. So people are so quick to see things that link them to outside South Africa. Oh, they saw pictures of people dancing in ancient Egypt. People dancing in ancient Egypt, lifting their legs like the Zulus. Oh, the Zulus come from ancient Egypt. Yay! Sorry, guys. It's too much, you know? Like, the stupidity is just outrageous. It's outrageous. It's tantamount to a mental disability, actually. It's tantamount to a mental condition that you don't actually take the time to research, compare, contrast things. So you can't just look at the dreadlocks of people and say they come from outside. Those dreadlocks you find amongst Amahlubi. Those dreadlocks you find amongst Amazojo. Those dreadlocks you find amongst the other groups from KZN. You also find them amongst the Gauteng people. You find them amongst the Gauteng people. So why can't Amahlubi be linked to the Gauteng? Which, I mean, would make more sense to me. If you go and look at a lot of Hlubi people, you would see similar features. If you look at the clothing of Hlubi people, you would see a lot of similarities with the clothing of the Gauteng. If you look at the language of the Hlubi people, you would see a lot of similarities with the Gauteng language. But somehow you want to link the Hlubi to the Shubi tribe in some Congo jungle that has nothing to do with the Amahlubi. The word, the sound, the lateral alveolar fricative does not exist in the Shubi language. That's how they catch you. They will mention something like, oh no, the Hlubi were originally called Amashubi, but Amashubi are still there. They have no idea of that. You do know that Amashubi, the Shubi people are there in Congo. They've never heard of Hlubi people. They don't even know how to pronounce the word Hlubi. But because of how gullible, naive, and susceptible and suggestible our people have become, they will accept anything as long as it does not affirm our people's origin here in this land. So there's no Amahlubi that come from anywhere. Amahlubi are indigenous here. Heck, kabatwa, tsak. If that hurts you, go to hell. Huck, you can come challenge me right here, right now. Join and challenge me, and I will deal with you. I know nobody's gonna join and challenge me. They prefer to go and talk about me in private. Some of them, I taught them everything they know. Some of them are my former students. Oh, I must say that very bad students at that. It's a shame how the bad students over time develop a very misinformed level of confidence. A very misinformed, amiss level of confidence. And they want to run the show whilst the very bright students keep quiet because they know how to self-introspect. They know how to hold themselves accountable. That is the curse of intelligence. When you're so smart and analytical, you can hold yourself accountable at times. Not always, but a lot of the times. You can hold yourself accountable. You can introspect. You know your imperfections. When you're so stupid, a lot of the times you don't even care. You just want to be there. You want to be a loud mouth. I'm just saying that if you failed woodwork, you have no right to tell me about anything. Guys, the guy who was always failing in class cannot come out now and try to convince millions of people on what to do with their lives. The guy who was always the class clown does not have the right to come and tell people what to do with their lives, what their future should look like. It's just unheard of. It's unheard of, but unfortunately, the shallowness of our people, when it comes to everything, it's all about personality. The loudest person wins. The most, expressive person wins. The same thing with these pseudo-intellectuals, whether they follow, because they prefer trends, really. They don't prefer thinking. They prefer trends because trends are, they're sensational, they're exciting. Thinking is boring because you actually have to be honest when you think. You have to observe things for what they are. You have to be objective. So people will always jump on the next trend. Oh no, the trend now is Pan-Africanism. Let's go. The other trend, feminism. Let's go. The other trend, patriarchy. Let's go. Motherfucker, think. Use this. Observe, study. It's multifaceted. The very nature of life is multifaceted. You understand? It's not something that you can just jump onto. You have to study. Anyone who follows my work knows. I always tell them, I'm not a cult leader. And I'm not going to agree with you with everything. If you're wrong, I'll tell you you're wrong. Whether you like me or not, it means very little. Back to this. So you don't look at people's hairstyles and then assume they're from somewhere else. Why is it that our people are so quick to jump at the first instance of even the slightest bit of external reference? They jump at that. You find one word that's similar to Hebrew. Yeah, we are Hebrews. One word similar to Mesopotamian languages. Whoa, guys, we are Anunnaki. Some. We are Anunnaki. Hey, my daughter. Nice sugar. Nice sugar. Nice sugar. Anunnaki. Now, on a serious note, these hairstyles are indigenous Southern African hairstyles. If these hairstyles happen to occur in Sudan, it's fine. They occur in Sudan. It has nothing to do with me. My hairstyle is from here. That's it, guys. That's really all there is to it. So that's the first one. The second one, I want to talk about EMbo, actually. Let me remove the background so that it does not distract me. I want to talk about EMbo today. I want to talk about the identity of EMbo because I realize that no matter how much we explain this, people are just intent. They're intent on misrepresenting and misconstruing the whole EMbo thing. First and foremost, guys, let me explain. EMbo is a pure Nguni construct. 1, 2, a pure Sututswana Pedi Kilobedu Koni construct. That is what Abambo. When you talk about Abambo, you must look in Nguni and you must look in Tswana groups. That is to say, it's an exclusively South African in particular identity. Now, I will exclude the Tswana languages because they've got their own instance of Bapo or Bapai. We'll go back to that one. Let me address Abambo. You do not take the word Abambo and then immediately like, oh, it sounds like Owambo. Therefore, Abambo are Owambo from Namibia. Yay, same people. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. What are the Owambo? What do they say? Are they Nguni the Owambo? Because the Abambo that you talk of, like Amahlubi, within their own clan names, they've got Nguni. You know that the only Nguni clan that I know amongst the Xhosa-speaking groups today is Amahlubi. Amahlubi literally have within them a clan known as Omnguni. Mnguni meaning no Zulu, those who are up. Guys, it's literally telling you what the word Abanguni mean. Within Amahlubi, you've got Mnguni, no Zulu, Mbafane, Tukela. Now, Tukela and Mbafane are rivers in KZN. That if that does not tell you what Abambo are really, none of the clan names of Abambo have anything to do with Central, East, West, or Northern Africa. In fact, none of the clan names have got anything to do with outside of South Africa. In fact, none of the clan names have got anything to do outside of KZN and Eastern Cape. When we say Abambo, we're talking about people who occupy a specific area at a specific time. You know that if you were in South Africa in 1200 AD, you would not hear about something called Abambo. In 1100 AD, you would not hear about something called Abambo. In 1000 AD, it was not there. It's a political structure that develops at the fall of Mapungubwe. At the fall of Mapungubwe, then new polities develop. Because those trade routes from Mapungubwe to Chibwene in the Indian Ocean, at the mouth of the river Limpopo, those polities that were existing there, you know, solidifying the trade in gold and copper and all that, and then trickling down. Some of those polities, because the structure of Mapungubwe fell apart, some of those economic, those industries were controlled by groups much closer to Libombo Mountain now, and Mozambique, and Zimbabwe, and also in Limpopo. So the Limpopo Shasha Valley becomes this, you know, boiling pot of wealth and all that in those days. So what you have is that as Great Zimbabwe rises and other communities like Butwa, Manyikeni, Chibwene, you also have the Tembe Empire coming up. These people are also trading with people who are in KZN. In the 13 and 1400s already. They're trading with people who are in KZN and people who are around the Libombo Mountains. Now Libombo, from the name itself, Ubombo is a ridge. Something that blocks something else. Ubombo is a ridge, like a mountain range. Yes, we were trading with Arabs. We traded with Arabs, we traded with Indians, we traded with Moors, we traded with Moors, the black Bedouins, we traded with Asians, and even Europeans before the Portuguese. The trade ran from Eritrea. From the Red Sea down to the north of Mozambique, penetrating inland into Great Zimbabwe, into Limpopo, penetrating inland into the Libombo area. So, now let's go back to Abambo. The word EMbo. EMbo. My mother always says, ungalahli imbo yakho ngophoyana. Don't throw away your EMbo because of uphoyana. Now, clearly, EMbo is something material that you can touch. Because if you throw it away, that means you can also keep it. So when they say, the elders say, ungayilahli imbo yakho, don't throw away your imbo due to upoyana. Upoyana is something else that seems nicer but less valuable. So imbo is a valuable thing. And when elders explained it, they say, no, it's a stone. It's a type of stone that you dig underground. That is where the whole idea of ukumba. So because iambiwa, it's called imbo. Khuyeba is to dig. Ukutapa, kutapa. You know, when there's a looting spree, we always say abantu bayatapa. Ukutapa, ukumba. It is something that's extracted from the ground. It's a stone of some sort. So now elders even say, if let's say your child enrolls let's say your child enrolls at Wits and they're doing actuarial science or statistics or one of these difficult streams, you know, accounting, whatever. And then they meet friends there, and almost all their friends are into. I'm not trying to diss any field of study, but let's say all their friends are more into like playing games, like gaming online, And now your child doesn't understand that their background has different needs altogether. This child comes from a bad background. So it would help them to focus on accounting because it's something that can take them, places. Anyway, this child is like, no, mom, my friends are doing gaming. I'm going to go and play, whatever games are popular these days. And then it doesn't really end well for the child. They drop out of school and then the gaming doesn't go very well. So elders will say, wadludla nophoyana. Wadludla nophoyana. Ukudludla is like a form of the word ukuquqa, to go and come back, to go and come back, to go and come. Ukuquqa is to be always on the move. That's why when you are someone who organizes things, we say usisiququ, because we are ququzela. Ukuququzela is to always be on the move, back and forth, back and forth. So ukuquqa is that action. Ukudludla is the exact same thing. When we say uyadludla, you are doing the exact same thing, always on the move, unstable. You're not very established. So when elders say wadludla nophoyana, you basically went away because of temporary pleasure, peer pressure or whatever else. So you left EMbo. EMbo, in this case, figuratively being those other courses that are difficult and boring, like accounting, actuarial science, engineering, and whatever. So ukudludla nophoyana, therefore, is to take whatever temporary pleasure you can find, go with it. So EMbo is something that features in our culture on the daily basis. It's not something that's strange that we're finding on the internet. No, we grew up using the word EMbo. So now the idea that people who have never even heard this word in their entire life are going to come and tell me what EMbo is. No, that's not going to work. I know what EMbo is. I'm not asking what it means. I know exactly what it means. I was raised with these teachings about EMbo. Let's be very clear. We're not asking. We know exactly what EMbo is. So it's a stone that you dig and then it's valuable. And many people, even elders, said explicitly, it's a golden stone. It could be copper, it could be gold. It doesn't matter, but it's a stone. It's a mineral in the literal sense. Now, EMbo are people who were involved at least sometime in the past in that process. Whether they were mining iron, whether they were mining copper, it does not matter, because they would mine and come back with stones. Now, when you mine, remember, you're coming back with a hardened, solid, rock form called an ore. Could be an iron ore, could be a gold ore, could be whatever ore. We call it isnyithi. That ore is EMbo. Then you take that ore, you purify it. When you purify the ore, there's an entire process of how it works. Put it in the fire, isidlangalala, the fire, and then isidlangalala, it melts the whole thing. It reach boiling point, and then purification happens, and then forging happens, which is ukukanda, the forging process, and then we form whatever shape we want, which is ukuqinqa, etc. But EMbo is in reference to that process of having this precious stone. Now, people who were involved in some of these processes in South Africa, there was a strong culture of iron smelting in South Africa. But the further up you went towards Limpopo, the stronger the iron smelting culture was, the stronger the copper mining culture was, the stronger the gold mining culture was. In the Mpumalanga, Swatini, Limpopo region, it was very strong. I think because these materials are abundant in those areas, you're not going to mine something you don't have. Even in Eastern Cape, we did iron smelting, we did all of those things. But I think the degree to which we did this was limited because of the availability of these things. In fact, when the Portuguese came in the 1400s, they called the Limpopo River Rio do Cobres. Rio do Cobres, the river of copper, because of how abundant it was in the area, you see. But mining was happening. So I think some of those clans that were involved in the trade in Libombo, in the trade in Chibuene, where there was gold, some of those societies moved down from Libombo and then penetrated northern KZN after crossing Upongola River. When they cross Upongola River, they live with modern day ancestors of modern day Zulus, the ancestors of the Kungebe people, the ancestors of the Sibiya people, the ancestors of the Zungu people, the ancestors of the Zulu people of Umalandel. These ancestors of these people were already in those regions long ago. Some of them were living in caves even. For example, the Gwabini Zungu people, they were cave dwellers. It's a known fact. It's oral history. And we know what we call cave dwellers. We know which people are cave dwellers in South Africa. Now, Amahlubi, for example, they lived in northern KZN for a while, places like Vryheid and Newcastle. And Amahlubi had this access to that network of Tembe traders, maybe through their association with the Nkosi bloodline of Dlamini, because they are said to be brother bloodlines since ancient times. Maybe through that association, they had access to the Tembe trade network or trade routes. And it is through these that this, not to say there was no gold mining or iron mining culture, but I think the focus on it was definitely influenced by the trade concentration in those areas. So then some of these groups cross Utugela, and then they occupy the areas in the slopes of the Drakensberg. That doesn't mean there were no people there. There were already people there. Amadeke, Omakai were already there. Amamfene were already there. Amachube, okay, a lot of them were even in northern KZN. Amachunu were big iron smelters as well. Correct. You see, Mukaranga is mentioning something. Muvenda mubikwa naive. Ive lavuba. Muvenda asala. Muvenda, the one who got cooked with a stone. The stone got cooked first, and Muvenda remained. It refers to the iron, the smelting of ore. Let me tell you something. Amabele say the exact same thing. Amabele, Kunta, they say the exact same thing. Ibele elaphekwa nelitye, kwavuka ilitye, avuthwa ilitye kuqala, lahlala ibele lingavuthwanga. Exactly the same, which refers again to the culture of digging for these ores, these valuable stones, smelting them through the fire, cooking them through the fire, purifying them, removing impurities, and then forging them into various things like tools, weapons, etc. So there's a strong history of this. Now, some of the people who did these things were called different names. In isiXhosa, for example, Ilala. Ilala is a name for someone who's a blacksmith. That's it. If you're a blacksmith in isiXhosa, your name is Ilala. That is the name of the profession. And that's why I always say, when people talk about Amalala being people who speak with their tongue laying against the palate. I was always like, for me, it doesn't make sense, man, because Amalala, we already have the word. It refers to blacksmiths. That's it. People who work with iron, people who work with metals, who smelt and all that. So you had that group, and then you had Abambo, Abantu Bambayo. Yeah, those who have access to the stone. Those who have access to the stone. So the region now where Abambo were concentrated, or the groups who were involved in the trade with the Libombo groups were concentrated, is that region of the Drakensberg. Doesn't mean they were not in other places. As we already know, Amashu were already working with other Sotho and Tswana groups in the Tswana direction of Gauteng and Mpumalanga. We already know Amashu were already working closely with the Abantungwa, who were in Babanango, Hluhluwe, and other areas. So now, people of these professions, were called Abambo, and a lot of them dwelt in the southern part. They dwelt in the southern part of KZN, and therefore they were then called Abasembo. Those who occupy the southern part of KZN, EMbo. Why do you think that Abasembo usually overlap with the name Abasezantsi? Why do you think that the people called Abambo, they are almost exactly as the same as the people who are called Amazants? Come on, guys. Amazants refers to those who are in the south of KZN. Abandungwa, those who are in the north of KZN. Abambo, those who are in the south. So Abazants and Abambo, the names almost exclusively refer to the same people. That's why people get confused, because they will hear Abakwamkhize. They will hear the Mkhize people say Mumbo, when I was Embo, when I walala no munendunu, blah blah blah. So you find that Abambo are also Amalala, they are also Amazans at the same time. Because Amalala, blacksmiths, Abambo, those work with the stone. Amazans, south of KZN. If you are in the south of KZN, you work with the precious stones and you make metal. Uli Ungumbo, Ulilala, and Ulizans at the same time. None of this has anything to do with anything outside of South Africa. None of this has anything to do with your particular bloodline, as in like you originate from somewhere else. Let me show you. You see, there's a group of people known as Amaklesibe, the Klesibe people. When they came to Eastern Cape, because they come from KZN, a lot of them. When they came to Eastern Cape, they came as Abambo. But Amaklesibe said expressly with their own mouths that they are Mutwa or Umtwa. But they are called Abambo. So Abambo has nothing to do with you come from somewhere else. They say Umtwa, Klesibe, Nonzaba, Kuma, Kandanyawana. And at the same time, they are called Abambo because they come from EMbo, the region between the river Umtamvuna and the river Utukela. Now, let me tell you something about this place called EMbo. You know, this is the place that Europeans wanted in KZN. In fact, I don't want to say more. But EMbo is the place that Europeans wanted in KZN. The place they called the colony of Natal. That's why you have KwaZulu/Natal. Because Natal, the Europeans claimed as their own between Umtamvuna and Utugela. That's really what it is. That is EMbo. In fact, at home, let me tell you something. When there's thunder coming, when there's a storm coming, we go outside, you talk to the storm. EMbo, kwela mangwane. Go back, we're telling the storm, go back to EMbo, where the Ngwane people are living right now. Go there to the Ngwane people. Where are the Ngwane people? Some people say, EMbo, Kwamachi. Where are the people about Kwamachi? Southern KZN. In fact, I've even heard a Xhosa poet referring to Mpondoland, Emampondweni, as EMbo. Amambondo referred to their neighbors as those who are from EMbo. So, this is a purely South African construct. You're gonna get confused if you wanna conflate it with non-South African stuff, like the Mbo people of Cameroon. Kwamanci. No, akhona amanci, bakhona abantu bakwamaci. Two different groups. Then abekhona amachai. Three. Amanci, the Nci people, abakwamaci, and amachai. Three different groups. Most of them are Amazocho, by the way. They are Debe people, Kwe people, straight. They are Debe people, Kwe people. Those who cut their faces. No, Amanci akona. There's a clan called Amanci. And then there are people known as Abakwamaci. So Amampondo say EMbo Kwamaci, which is just above Mbondoland. Southern KZN, Northern Eastern Cape. So already, if you are a genuine person, you can clearly see that this EMbo thing, unfortunately, when our ancestors were talking about it, they had nothing to do with these things of people coming from Central Africa. They had no clue about that. It was a purely native South African thing. Like there's a brother here, Unyati, unokhonza ingonyama, unogiqa umbengo. He's saying, kwabomvana sisatsho, sithi EMbo, emampondweni, xa sikhwaza isiZulu. You see, amongst the Bomvana people, majority of whom are between Umbashe River and Umtata, majority, but they are also in other places. But majority of Amabomvana are between the river Umbashe and the river Umtata. Places like Ngwangul, places like Xhoga, places like Mqanduli. They say EMbo when they talk to the storm. Emampondweni, go to Emampondweni, go to Mpondoland, EMbo. So where is this EMbo that people are talking about? Because natives of this land, when they talk about EMbo, they specify exactly what region they are talking about. EMbo amongst the Ngwane people, EMbo amongst the Machi people, EMbo amongst the Mpondo people. So which other EMbo do you guys know of that convinces you so much that, oh no, Abambo, they come from somewhere else? Where is the proof of that? Don't take similar names and make it seem like it's the same thing. It's not. It's disingenuous, it's dishonest, it's lies, it's misleading. It's misleading. All right. So then, the people you call Abambo, that is really the level at which you must understand. Within Abambo, then it's a multi-ethnic concoction. I've already explained ukulahla imbongo poyana mos. I started with that. That is what it is, really, this thing of EMbo. In fact, let me tell you a little story. Amongst Abatembu, there's a gentleman who became a bishop, who became a Christian, a man called Bishop Mabon. You know, he was telling the story of how they used to refer to the thunder and storm season. In fact, they called the personified thunder, the personified storm, they called him Unamba. They personified the storm. Unamba. So the storm is Unamba. This is what Europeans refer to as Thor or Thunder. So if you watch Marvel, when they talk about Thor, for us, it's Unamba. Now, Unamba, the belief was that Unamba comes at a specific time of the year. Remember what I said about these people who were involved in the trade in the Lubombo area. Amahlubi, Amazizi, Amangwane, being some of the most influential groups. Now, remember these people, they took traded items from the Indian Ocean, which were traded with those communities there. Through the Tembe, through the Nkosi, Dlamini, and Hlubi bloodlines, they penetrate into KZN and into inland via the Hlubi networks with Basotho, Botswana. And then some of these products come and penetrate inland through the EMbo networks. One of those is the product called the rainbow corn. Now, rainbow corn is literally from India. Don't bother requesting to join, guys. I'm not going to accept you. I see people requesting, don't bother. You're not going to be accepted. So, the rainbow corn that you see, it was called umbona obomvu, or the red corn. In fact, our people say it exactly, umbona ogwetu wasembo, the red corn of EMbo. The red corn of EMbo. So that corn penetrated us through the trade in Libombo, which obviously connects. The trade in Libombo connects KZN societies. It connects KZN societies to Mozambique societies. Now Mozambique has been involved in trade for a very long time. Mozambique is part of Azania, actually. When people talk about Azania, it has nothing to do with South Africa. It's got everything to do with Mozambique here in Southern Africa. Mozambique, Tanzania, Zanzibar, Eritrea, Somalia. That is the coast of Alzani or Alzania. So the northern part of Mozambique was heavily involved in the trade. And in Kenya, you had Malindi, there's Kilwa. So the trade in Mozambique was very old and mature and very attractive. That's how the Arabs got access to us. That's how the Yemenites got, the Yemenis, that's how the Omanis, that's how the other Arab tribes got access to us, and the Persians. You understand? So, as well as the Moors of Africa, the Moors from Africa, the Bedouins. That's how these people got access to us, through the Mozambique side and obviously inland. So a lot of Moors and Arabs and Portuguese, when they came here, there was already a trade infrastructure that had existed for a very long time. The Greeks wrote about this infrastructure, which came through Mozambique, and then it spread. So some products really had been traded much longer, like cotton, like silk. You know, in the 1400s already, people are wearing silk turbans. Corn didn't come with the Portuguese. They're lying. They're lying. The corn had already come. That's why we call it umbona ogwetu wasembo. In fact, the name gambushe is the name of that corn that came from India, because it's red. We call it gambushe. You know, gambu means red. Whenever you hear the word gambu or gambu, it refers to something that's red like blood. You know, I know Khakhabe, his other name was gambushe or gambu. Remember last time I had a live, I was explaining the word ngombo and tombo. Gambu is one of those words as well. It's gambu in the click form, gambu. In the non-click form, it's gambu or gampu. So Khakhabe's other name is gambu or gambush. He got that name through his mother. He got the name Gambushe through his mother. His mother is said to be of the Tembu Kudeni bloodline. But some people are saying, no, his mother was Pondomis. I'm not going to get into that. Anyway, that corn is one of the many examples of the long trade with India. All right. I was explaining then the importance of doing due diligence. You don't just look at the hairstyle of one group. Oh, it's similar to this other group, therefore that means these people are from there. That's not how it works, unfortunately. You need to study 500 years worth of history. You cannot just skip it for your own narrow interests, for your own narrow agendas. So when you look at the hair, yes, ugastekeke, that is Gambusha. That is Gambusha. So when you look at the hair of these Xhoxeni women, you must understand this is the same hair you find amongst the Mahlubi. This is the same hair you will find among some groups along the southern part of KZN. Your Zocho, your Gwahu, back in the day, not now, of course. Your Gwahu, your Chwau, your Dei, your Maki, your Nri people, Amang. You will find this look a lot amongst those groups. And it has nothing to do with Sudan. It's got nothing to do with Ethiopia. It's got nothing to do with any of those. Nothing at all. Now, that's one. Two, there's a person saying, corn is from America, not India. Oh no, who said corn is from India? Out of this entire 1 hour that I'm talking, who said that corn is from India? And who said corn is African? What are you guys talking about? Are you actually high or drunk? Or you're one of those kids in the class that I was talking about earlier who were like, give me 0, ma'am. And then now you want us to take you seriously. Well, nobody here said corn is African. Corn is from India. Who said that? Are you stupid? I didn't say corn is from India. I said we traded corn with India. The rainbow corn, also called the Indian corn, is not going to change that it's called the Indian corn. Whether it's from America or the ice, it's called Indian corn. That's it. It's not going to change that. It's not going to change. All right. To move forward, I want to go to this one now. We've been told many times that, you know, I want you to notice here, you can see the shield, you can see the leopard or wildcat skin, you can see isibhaca, you can see ingubo, you can see isidlokolo. My people, if you were in South Africa in the 1800s, in the 1600s, in the 1500s, everyone was going to be like this in South Africa. In the 1500s, if you were here, most people were going to look like this. This is why the Dutch in 1686, when they went to southern KZN, remember they went to Port Shepstone because there was a shipwreck there. So when they went to Port Shepstone, they met the Mkhize people. Then they met Amampondo Mise, Amabomvana, Abathembu, Amaxhosa, and another group called Khrikhrikhwa. The Khrikhrikhwa, I don't know who they are, I'm not gonna lie, the Khrikhrikhwa. But I have a feeling it's one branch of Abathembu. I have a feeling it's one branch of Abathembu. Remember, the Abathembu were once called the Little Chinese. The Europeans used to call Abathembu the Little Chinese or the Bushmen Tambukis. You see? Anyway, when the Dutch, 1686, it's written in the book, The Record by Moody. When they came from southern KZN all the way to KwaXhosa, they record everything they see. They record the clothing they see and how similar the clothing is amongst the groups. And this is exactly what they saw. Whether in KZN, whether in Eastern Cape, they saw the same thing. They called the Tembus Little Chinese. Obviously, it's probably because of their eyes, maybe the cheekbones, and what is this thing? Light skin. But we know We don't come from Chinese. It's the opposite. It's the opposite. You know, Chinese have got the Homo Denisovan blood. They're mixed. They're mixed with the other species, Homo Denisovans and all that. But in those regions of Asia, like in the Philippines, and you had other native groups there. I'm not sure if they are still there today, but you had some native groups there in Asia, in the Philippines, who look extremely Southern African. Some even spoke in click languages. I'm telling you, I've seen a video of a South Asian who spoke a click language. It's crazy because every time I make a video, I was explaining names like Kaya just a few days ago. And then someone is like, no, but these names sound Chinese. No, they don't sound Chinese. It's Mandarin that sounds like us. It's Mandarin that sounds like us. You don't take an outsider and make them our reference. We are the reference. That's the biggest problem with you people. You see something that's similar to South Africa, you say, no, it's South Africa that is similar to that thing. No, South Africans are similar to this. No! That thing is similar to us because we are the source. We are the point of reference. You can't say, I'm similar to a Chinese. No, it's the Chinese that is similar. But also, remember, the Chinese are mixed. That's why they have the West African head instead of the Southern African head with a protuberant occiput. The head of the Chinese is West African instead of Southern African. But the face sometimes does look Southern African before they do the nose job and the other stuff. You know, nowadays, you can't even tell who's who. You meet a Korean with blonde hair and a straight pointy nose. Ni hao, ogao. They don't like the West Africans, which is crazy. They are there in Guangzhou, full of West Africans. Before you know it, it's going to be West African Chinese in huge numbers. But anyway, this look, these are Kora, this is a Kora Kwesib. This is a Kora Kwesib. This look, if you go to Konce in the 1600s, you find this look. You go to Kobongaba in the 1600s, you find this look. You go to Kukue in the 1600s, you find this look. You go to Zimakwe, Southern KZN, you find this look. And this is what led the Dutch in the book called The Record. It led the Dutch to say, in fact, it was the leader was a man called Isaac Schrijver. He was an ensign. He was an ensign. He went as far as Grafrinet, Moeba. Then the guys who had been dragged in the Stavanissa ship, those people who had been dragged in the Stavanissa ship, when they came down from Southern KZN to KwaXhosa, they said they saw 5 groups, and this is extremely important. Extremely important. 5 groups of Hottentots. I didn't say it. The European said it. 5 groups of Hottentots, they list them. And they will say then, the nicest one, interestingly, was the Xhosa. Interestingly, it seems Xhosa people are nice, eh? Almost every group says the same thing. Xhosa people are nice. They were nice even back then in the 1600s. The Europeans were like, the nicest group was the Xhosa. They say the chief of the Xhosa was Magama, or could have been Magama. But, you know, I believe that was a small chief, you know. I'm sure that was a small little chief. I don't think that was the main chief, because the main chief was Togu, in the 1680s. Now, remember, Togu is the hippo. It's a Gunkia word, hippo. That was the real Xhosa chief. In fact, in one of the documents, they write Togu as Tokwe or Toke, you see. So that was definitely not Togu. The one they met was a smaller chief called Magama or Magama or Mangama. It could have been a click word. I've learned that, you know, in the 1600s, the Europeans did not even know how to notate the clicks. So a lot of words that had clicks, when you read them, they don't have clicks, and they make no sense without the clicks. So it could have been someone called Mangama which makes complete sense now than Magama. In fact, in the 1700s, a chief of the Gikwa called Raider by the Dutch, they called him Twina. They wrote Twina when they wrote down. Twina. I remember talking to Qaq Ochesep about this. And Qaq Ochesep said, there's no way that name is Twina. It has to have a click name. Twina. Okay, I put a note on that. Then I started looking for oral records of Gikwa people. It took me, I think, 2 years to find proper oral accounts of Gikwa people. And they say exactly what Qaq Ochesep said. They say no. In fact, the name was Nguina. Nguina. Which makes sense. Nguina makes complete sense, actually. Nguina is in reference to someone who has the power to command others to bow to them. So someone who is like Gasa, you know, Gasa, someone who rules over others. Who rules over others. Tokoloko. Khoi haplogroup DNA is A. Bantu Y haplogroup is E. Chinese Y haplogroup DNA is O. We are not Chinese. Who said you're Chinese, my brother? Hey, I'm blocking you and I am sorry. You are dumb. You can't be speaking your own things here in the comments. Who said we are Chinese? I'm saying that Europeans call their Tembu people little Chinese. Who said they are? I go with your friend to smoke weed. You're not gonna stay in my life. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not gonna tolerate this level of retardedness. I will block you now. If you are retarded, you're out. I have zero tolerance for stupidity. Hear what the person is saying. Don't argue your own things here. If you have small racial complex, inferiority complex, go sort that out and don't come here and be talking nonsense. All right. This is the look you would find. Now, these are Kora people. The first problem here that you have is that you convince the people, when you read European nonsense, they will tell you that the shit, oh no, the Xhosa people didn't have a shield, the Khoi people didn't have a shield. What is this that they have, Kanti, here? What is this that they're holding here? A yield. It's a yield. Is this a yield? Nah. It's a shield. It's a shield. And people are like, oh no, the Bantu came with iron culture. How were the Kora doing their own iron work, Kanti? How? How do they do their own iron work? Now you know the name of this shield is called Kos. Kos or Kos. That's why people call it cow or Ichau. It's Kos or cow Kos. Cow Kos or cow. Hey! I get Kematoda. In Kora, this shield is called cow. Where do you think the name cow comes in? There you go. It's cow. It comes from the verb, actually. The verb cow. When you in Kora Kubab, when you say cow, you are saying you are blocking something. Cow is to block. So they call the shield. This shield here that you see, it's cow, which means a cow. We told you. We told you. Cow is a cow. There you have it. And then you've got leather hides like aprons that are worn. And these aprons don't come from somewhere else. You know, the headdress, these headdresses, they've got different names. You've got case, You've got Chaib or Chaba. Chaba is a headdress. AmaXhosa call it isitsaba. Isitsaba. Again, showing the very intricate origin of all these things that we hold high here. Here, let me tell you something. You know, the head, it's got many different names. Inhloko, ikhanda. In Kwingia, this thing head is called nce. It's called nce or nce. This is why you have ncegela or incagela and nqentsu. This is another name for the head, particularly of an animal, like when you're eating the meat of a head. And this is what they call it in talk. They probably lost the original word. And this is called, so we call it umqambula. Umqambula, where I'm from. Umqambula. I hear people say umqambulo these days. Now, qambula, you find the same name in Qora, muqab, for a head. Munqab. We tinas do umqambula. In Qora, it's munqab. Some say biqab. Biqab. It's a head. This is why the name of a chief in Qora, a local chief, it's Bia or Bika. It's called Bia from the word Biqab. Bia. There was a gentleman called Hans Trumpeter. His title was Bia. It's basically what you would call Induna. Or it's Bonda. It's Bia or Bika. A head. And then you have a Gaub, which is a chief. In isiZulu and in isiXhosa, that would be Umgwebi. Gaub, Gwebi. Or Igweba, the one who judges cases. Gaub. And then you've got a big chief now, the king, basically. It's Gaub, which is also an equivalent of Igorha and Uchachoba. Gaub. Gaub. Once again, I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not the one who said you guys must share culture with Qora people. If now we're going to act as if those cultural similarities and common origin are null and void, then it's fine. Then the Shubi can become Shubi people. But they're going to become Shubi people in 2026, not in origin. Because in origin, they've got nothing to do with Shubi people. Someone's asking if there are any links between the shield and the handshake. Well, how? You see, let me teach you how to speak quickly. Let me teach you how to speak. I always say this, and I will say it forever, until people can understand what I'm saying. Dauti Golo. Dauti Golo. Dauti Golo. Ukuthi hlohliyane ezimfundiso. Dauti Golo ukuthi hlohliyane ezimfundiso. Zide zithi cha engcamangweni yapha. Ngoba zona zibalekile ukuthi siziqondisise. Ndizawuthi chu ke andisunqa athi chu ncembe ndiloko ndihlohla ndiloko ndixonxe de kuthi qwenge engqondweni niqhabuke uba eyona nto apha siyiqingayo yingqiqo ebuqilimi. Mamela ke baza indlebe xa uthetha, when you speak uthetha phuhlu, uthetha tsoli. When you speak clearly for clarity of meaning, kukho ndlela zimbini zimbaxa. Uthetha ngokomsekelo wenqobo. You speak in the primary way. Xa uthetha ngokwesisekelo senqobo, awayamanisi siqu sagama nanto ihlonyelweyo. Isiqu segama awusingqiyamisi ntweni, sizimele geqe. Ndiyaphinda. Xa uthetha phuhlu, isiqu segama simageqe, sikhokelwe sisenzi esincedisayo esingu ukuthi. Umzekelo, ukuthi geqe, ukuthi khiqa, ukuthi qhwa. Yindlela leyo yokuthetha esebenzisa isiqu segama. Akho sihlomelo singqiyamayo osingumsila egameni, lime geqe igama lilodwa. Yindlela yokuthetha phuhlu leyo ngokusebenzisa ingcambu. Indlela yesibini yokuthetha, uguqula isandi esenziwa liqabane lokugqibela, okanye ufakele isimamva kwiziqando ngeziqando zezenzi, esokwenzeka, esokwenzela, esokwenzisa, esokwenziwa, njalo njalo. So when you speak, you could speak in the primary form using the root word. It's a way of speaking. Let me show you. When you use the word to sink or to drown or to disappear, the primary form of that word is choni. Choni. Choni means disappearance. So when you want to say the sun has set, you could say ilanga lathi choni, or iqam lathi choni. The sun has finally set. When the sun rises, iqam lathi gqi, or iqam lathi tswa, ilanga laphakam. That is a primary way of speaking. How does this relate to the question of the name of the word ukuqhawula and the name of the shield qhawu? I'm trying to show you that these are not the same thing. Qhawu for ukuqhawu for the shield means to cover. Qhawu for ukuqhawula means to come together. Two different things. Now, izandla zethu zathana qhawu. Our hands came together like that. Zathana qhawu. They came together like that. So that qhawu is cognate to isiZulu gcawu. Gcawu. What is gcawu? Gcawu is coming together. This is why inkundla or likhutla in isiZulu is also called isigcawu or esigcawini. Isigcawu on it. The word gcawu is another cognate of qhawu, meaning to come together. So esigcawini is the meeting place where people come together, enkundleni. So ukuqhawula now is not the primary form of this word. Qhawula is a shortened form. Heck, it's an ancient slang of the word qhawu. Tiqhawu. Tiqhawu qawakho. Which means hold hands with your peer. Iti qhawu qawakho. Hold hands with your peer. Qhawula uqawakho is like a slang form in ancient times, which has become the standard today. So that is a primary verbal form. How do you know? Well, you know because the root word is now no longer free. It's attached to either a prefix, a suffix, etc., etc. That's why you have that in that specific dialect is equivalent to qhawu in a different dialect. Qhawu also meaning to hold hands, to come together. That's why if you look at the coat of arms, you literally have two people coming together, but they were originally separated. Qara. So qara means to be different. It means to be differentiated, but it also means to be separated, to be discriminated. Ukuqalula. That's how we say it in the secondary form. So Kaula is the same as to hold, to come together. Which the cognate is literally or Gau. In isiZulu is Gau, in isiXhosa Ikawa, the church, the coming together. There's a brother here who says Arra is ukuchaza. Yes, ukuchaza, like to separate things. Arra, to make things independent or separate from each other. And then to bring things together. You see now the names Igao, Bota Sigao. Let me help you understand that one. It's another interesting one. You see, Sigao in Eastern Cape is a surname of Amaxhosa, Amachawe originally. That surname comes from a hierarchy that existed before the Europeans came. So in society, you would have different kinds of people. Some people were great warriors. Some people were just rich. Some people were good members of society. Some people were noble. Some people were related to the king. Some people married the king's daughter. So there were different, I wouldn't say classes, but hierarchies, if I can say, for an individual. Some of those individuals, their status, it's status. Those statuses would be expressed through the way they dress. So, for example, KwaZulu, if a man wears umqhele, we know his status in society. If a man wears isidlokolo, a specific type, we know his status. KwaXhosa is the same thing. Amongst Basotho is the same. A man who wears the ivory of an elephant is called isinqebamqhaka. That person has what? They've distinguished themselves in society. And one of the other things that people used to wear were beads. Red beads for royal people, the color of blood. Pink beads for people who are noble. Pink beads. The name of the beads is isigcawu. Isigcawu. That is the name of the beads. And therefore, the name Gau really meant noble man. It's a surname you find amongst Amaxhosa and Amampondo because they are in-laws. So they name each other in honor of each other. You find the same thing between Amaxhosa and Amampondo. So you've got Skomo, you've got Tsicha, they share those names because they are in-laws. That is Sikau. Now, then the word Sikau leads me to another type of word, Ingawu or Ingawa. Ingawa now, although I like the approach that people use when they try to explain it, they completely miss what it actually means. People say, no, Ingawa used to be worn. It was a blanket that used to be worn during the meeting of the family. The meeting was called Ngawa. No, meeting is not called Ngawa. Meeting is Tawu or Tawa. The word Tawa is correct, it's not wrong. The word Tawa is correct, it's not wrong, because it comes from the root Tawu, which we've just described and deciphered as Tawu and Tawu. In Ngawa, it actually comes from a word that means soft. It means softness. This is also why the heart is also called because it's the soft part of a person's psychology, I guess. It's where, you get hurt, you feel it here in this area. So, means soft. In fact, in Kora, when they refer to something very, very soft, they will say, tam, o. Tam, o, or tamsak, o. Tamsak, o. That is to say, a heart that seeks softness or the softness of life. That's why you've got names like Tamsa nga. Now nga means abundance or very much, a lot of softness, lot of ease, lot of luck. Tamsan, itamsan. You also have in Qora tam tam no, tam tam ngawa in its cause. So ngawa actually means soft, as in soft blanket. It was originally skin, usually sheep, because it's got that very soft thing. It was skin, soft skin. So that's the word ngawa. It comes from that word ngaw. All right. I think I've explained that thoroughly. Now, to move, I'm going to touch on some clan names. Just earlier today, I was talking about Esibe. I'm glad that I started by the whole thing of Abambo. Now I'm going to Esibe. The Esibe that you find in Eastern Cape, amongst Abatembu, or amongst Amabumvana, you will find those people in KZN. Now, you will see how stupid this thing of EMbo being Central Africa is. When people call Amaxesibe the people of EMbo. Which Xesibe group exists in Central Africa? Or Xesibe, the ones who expressly say Mtwa, Kuma. How does that then tell you that they come from Central Africa? It just doesn't make any sense to me. So do not misconstrue this thing of Abambo as something that means some people from somewhere else. If there are Abambo who come from somewhere else, they are those ones, not the ones that we talk about, Tina. Two different things. It's just a coincidence of similar names, really, not similar histories. If you go to the Eastern Cape, there's a place called Kesi and a place called Kesi. Two different places. There's Kesi and then there's Kesi. Then there's a river called Kesikama. Now, if you want to know what Kesibe means, maybe you should look at the features of that place called Kesi and Kesikama, because it's the same region. Full of sand everywhere. That is what Kesi is. Kesi is sand, the beach or the banks of a river where there's a lot of sand. In fact, the Portuguese in 1486, when they arrived in the Eastern Cape, the man who was leading the first ship was Infanta. He got off first in a river that was full of beach sand, the estuary where the river met the sea. You know what that river, what they called it? They called it Rio do Infanta, the river of Infanta. But the actual name is Kesikama, which means the river with sand. That's what Kesi is. And therefore, if you go to the Mtetwa people, there was a group there known as the Nele people. Abatwa, Nele, straight, Eremaqais. Within the Nele, there's a faction known as the Seme people, because they were hunter-gatherers. They survived on eating these birds that they hunted, the boosted birds, Amaseme. Then they were called the Seme people. Another group was called Msweli, based on a leader's name. But then the name of Kasibe or Kasibe was actually very popular, because they used to, you see, around St. Lucia, they used to range those regions along the sea, picking up stuff to survive as Abatwa. Now, Ubuntu has been misconstrued as well as this racial group thing. Kandi, there was an economic element to it too. You could be Umtwa and not Umtwa, Umtwa and not Umtwa at times. We can see that in the Drakensberg area, the Amatola Bushmen that existed there, the Amatola Bushmen in the southern Drakensberg, It was a group of different people. They were on horsebacks. They had guns, but they did not hunt. Sorry, they did not plant. They did not herd animals. And therefore, about... In fact, I think some of them were Amamfen, the Amatola Bushmen, they're in southern Drakensberg. I think some of them were Amamfen. Once again, you will never be able to understand the mysteries of indigenous knowledge with a European reference. Your mind needs to be detached from white supremacy. You need to stop being a white supremacist. Do not always need European validation if you want to understand indigenous mysteries. You will be confused. Like the dumb cops that I blogged here. Because they're stupid. They are unable to process and fathom the scale of the depth of this knowledge. It's just, they're unable to, I can't do anything about that. They're going to create fake accounts, come and join again, it's fine. But I'm not going to tolerate slowness. Not at this time. So our Klasibe then, they are literally attached to that group of the Klasibe and the Ngele and the Msweli and Seme people. Now, the same Klasibe come to Eastern Cape, which they say with their mouths, there's a group here called Amakwat, which I've expressed many times are quite people or quite people. But it's fine. They must believe whatever they want. Within Amakwati royal family, there's a Klasibe bloodline there. It's clear they were maybe intermarried or something. I don't know. But it's clear there's a Klasibe influence in the royal family. Not in the other clans, but in the royal family of Amakwat. I talk to a lot of Amakwat who assert that they are not Klasibe originally. Which is clear, the Klasibe part is in the royal family, inside. You see the same thing Mampondo Miseni. You see the same thing Mampondo Miseni. It's like there's two bloodlines within the royal family. There's the Ganga bloodline and then there's another bloodline. Now with the Ganga bloodline, you get Tsicha. You get Kengeba. And it is associated with the other groups. You get Nwina, associated with the other groups like your Kwecha, the other groups like your Ngabane. All these groups, they have this Ganga origin. But then there's another second bloodline, which was to distance itself from that. So because kings had many wives, that also develops in the royal family. So because of this wife, this specific bloodline starts to control the royal family. I mean, think about the Zulu royal family today. I mean, one may say the Swati royal family has significant influence today as we speak. Now, in ancient times, what would happen is that at some point, the Swati royal family would take over the Zulu royal family. Still maintain the name Zulu, but insert themselves in some ways, even put one of the children of King Mswati to lead the Zulu nation. They will still be called Zulu, but they will basically be Swati. It used to happen. It used to happen through diplomatic intermarriage, you know. So, again, you don't just label, you go into the details. You go into the details of each group, you understand the complexities. To see how disingenuous some of these histories are, you don't even hear who the mother of this nation is. For example, let's talk about Ntswana Tsatsi. Let's talk about Ntswana Tsatsi just a little bit. I said it time and again. There in Ntswana Tsatsi, which is really the east part of Gauteng when you go into Mpumalanga. There in Ntswana Tsatsi, I will explain quickly the name Ntswana Tsatsi. There was an event that took place. some of the Bafokeng who were actually Kwe were kicked out of the royal bloodline because they were kicked out. We call them Kamsholo today. We call them Kwak. We call them Mkwe, Amavund. They were kicked out of the royal family. You know that they had to leave into Anatsatsi, come to Eastern Cape, come to Southern Lesotho, and live there. They had their own dialect that they used to speak from Anatsatsi. If you look at the Kora sources about Ntwanatsatsi, they tell you that no. In Kora, they refer to those people as Batsatsing, particularly the Bafokeng part. They refer to them as Batsatsing. Another name in Kora, they were called Sabirina. Sabirina, the people of Ntwanatsatsi. What is Sabirina? You asked me. Biri, Kipudi. Imbuzi, Biri. Kaskora, Bari, Kibiri. Kasitswana, Hape Sisutu, Bari, Kipudi, or Pudi. Imbuzi. So, the people of Ntwanatsatsi then, particularly the Bafokeng, were then referred to in Kora Kobab as the Sabirina. Now, Biri is the goat. Birina generally refers to Basotho or Batswana. What is the Sa part there? Guesses, anyone? What is the Sa part that they are talking about? The Kora people, when they refer to the people of Ntwanatsatsi. The Sa part is the same part that people now try to claim as San. You know, it's a Kwemana word to refer to so-called Gwi. Yeah. So in Kwemana, when they refer to those people, they call them Sabirina. The so-called Bushman Sutus, the people of Ntwanatsatsi, or Batsatsing. So it was the word Batsatsing or Sabirina, the Bushman Sutus. Somehow you'll never see any of this in your school curriculum. You never see any of this in your school curriculum because it's not stamped by Europeans, but we know it from Kora history. We know about Sabirina. We know about Gcesikwa. Who are the Gcesikwa? Well, the Gcesikwa were a group of people who developed from the union of Kora Kwesib and Batlaping. The Batlaping themselves being a Sa under Barolong in those days, who then fought to detach from Barolong, joined with the Kora, bore a new tribe called Gcesikwa. That's Kora history. Within Kora history, Gcesikwa, we know they are Gena people, or the twin type of people. Batlaping, you know, in Kora, it's Klobi. Kapi, ki Klobi. When you say Kapi, it's Klobi. So, Batlaping is Klobi Kais, or Klobina, or Klobikwa. Depends on the dialect of Kora. Ubikwa. You go to the maps, you see Ubikwa. It's not Ubikwa, it's Ubikwa. Clapping. Onguba. The people of the fish. When you look at the Kora records now, when they talk about Batlaping, they tell you, no, Batlaping are not Kora. They are San original. Kikibarwa. Some people. Those same Batlaping. They are actually a Kram descended group of people. Remember, we spoke about Batsatsing, the Sabirina, the Bushman Basotho, or the Bushman Tswanas, or whatever. You see, that Birwa, you also find it in Kunkia to refer to Kalanga people. Interestingly, they are called Birwa. the Kalanga, who are actually quite mixed with your Chwa. Your Karanga are called Birwa in Kunkia. Your Maasai are called Kungue. Kungue in Kunkia. That is Maasai people. Kungue. Now, your average Central or Southern African, outside of the groups that I mentioned, like, for example, your Nyasa people, etc., they will generally be called Abe or Ebe people. That would be your Nyasa, that would be your Slingo people, that would be your Senzi people, that would be some of the groups from Congo. They were called Ebe or Ebe. Interestingly, you go to isiZulu, the word EMbe is there for a foreign tribe, Amaqembe. It's there also in Kunkia. Ebe. Interestingly, it's not used to refer to Amazulu, the word Ebe. Amazulu in Kwemana are called Kukauna. Kukauna. You know what that means? Ku, it's a hole. That's why we have the name Ngumayo or Ngumalo. The one who sucks from the hole. Yanguma. Mu is a hole. Oh, is the ear. Oh. Oh, ears with hole. Ona. The people whose ears are pierced. That's the Zulu name in Korakobab. Pirina. That's the name of modern day Batswana, sometimes Basotho. But I think it's more specifically Batswana. Sabirina or Batsating, the Tswana dwellers, from whom came the group we know as Amavundle today, the Mkwe people. The Kwe people, or Aba Omkwe, Okamsholo, Ogwaqa, Onyoke Mnyamicandi Zib Zib. Mabosha Ndlebe, yes, those who cut their ears, those who pierce their ears. It's Ngumayo, the one who sucks. And then you have Kumayo, the one who eats dry. The one who eats dry. Yeah, no, I'm not saying their San origin. Well, for this conversation, I'll use the word San. Yeah, but I'm not saying they are San origin. You see there. In fact, I know exactly where one of my ancestors lived. I know the name of the place. It's no longer the same name today. I think it's some Sotho name now. But in those days, it was called Kaqoa. There in southern Lesotho, the name of the place where my ancestors lived was called Kaqoa. The cave, I know exactly where it is. The cave is it's a heritage site today. It's under the control of Moria Museum. Or Murija Museum. In fact, in 1992, some Europeans were looking for San heritage, Bushman heritage in Southern Africa. You know, they went to Amamvene in Southern Lesotho. They went to a man called Musiwa. Etsedza, Mfene, Petla. They are called by different names there. You have the name Tsedza, you have the name Petla. Petla means the first, abapendla, those who opened the path. Who petla tsila, amapendla ndlela, those who went before everyone else. That's why amafena are also called mapetla, amapendla ndlela, emavula ndlela. Bona labo bakatalwa fati, batheukiye ngelitulini batokotsitsitsini eliphasini. Bona la batheuka ngebulebi etshabeni bancola ngemhluti imati yansa khona bageqa amazwe bapheka tiqhakupa ngeqawana bapheka tiphemphem ngeqawana. So when these Europeans went there to Lesotho, they went to amongst Amamfene to ask some history of Barwa. But if you go to KZN, you have Amamfene there. Some were living amongst Amazis. Some were living amongst a group of people known as Amadeke. Amadeke. See there, if you listen to A.T. Bryant, when he describes them, it's so disrespectful. He calls them foragers who did not know how to farm. Guys, like these people, they had so much audacity. That temerity they had. They called our people lazy. They did not farm. They were just picking up from the ground. There's a book by A.T. Bryant where he talks about Amafene and their relation to another group called Amadek, some old group that welcomed the Ngamalala faction into Nkandla and Ngutu. So apparently they were Amafene, they originally, then they welcomed the Ngamalala and then. But yeah, so Yotloutle is the Tregwe people. It's the Tregwe, the Bushmen of the Drakensberg. That's Tloutle people. It's the fire clan. Yeah. All right. I think there's a question. I want to check the question. The question here. Sorry guys, I should not check the questions. There is a reason why Tswana and Sotho are so undistinguishable, but we reach different culture. Okay. Yeah, no, the way they describe us, if you read the way Europeans described us, they didn't see us. That's why now I don't respect anything they wrote. The only thing I will take from their books are dates. I will take dates most of the time, like, just to confirm the timeline. Other than that, I don't need anything from European books. I don't need much. But I know there are our people that they will never listen to anything except it's written by Europeans. But Europeans, they have very little knowledge, man. Sometimes I will look for a story that Europeans wrote about. Then I'll look for the oral account of the same story. The oral account is always much more contextual, much more detailed, much more believable. I'll give you an example. The story of Kauta of Amakos. Kauta, there's a European guy who wrote about Kauta. William Patterson in 1770 something. He wrote about Kauta. I'm only glad about the location that Kauta was in from that story. But when you read the Xhosa version of Kauta, it makes sense. They say the same thing, but the Xhosa version there's more details, which means then our oral history, when it's true, not when it's based on European books, when it's true, is much more believable. You can depend on it much more than this nonsense. Because when you look at the story of Kauta in Xhosa tradition, they say he was weak as a leader. They say he was always afraid that Kgagabe is going to attack him. Therefore, he always had about 50 men or 100 men around him. They say that the only thing that was remembered about him was that he welcomed, or he found a way to bring the Gikwa to join Amaxhosa. And that's how Kauta then became remembered. The European account of the same story is so poor. So poor. He just mentions that he always has 20 guys. He calls them servants. Like, oh my goodness, those are bodyguards, Madasaka. Those are bodyguards. Why are you calling them servants? Okay, I'm not hearing you. Lee, you're saying that you saw a post of witness Mda that says the Tsonga people, yeah, write your thing again. I can't hear what you're saying. So the caves where my ancestors lived in Lesotho today, they are called Nklukhulu caves. The great house, because the chief lived there. That's why they are called Nklukhulu. Anyway, if you go to even like Bavenda or Chivenda, Shitsonga, you can still see the exact same thing that you see when you go deep into Zulu society, when you go deep into Venda society, the people know themselves. I guess that's the story that I'm going with today. The people already know themselves. You can just, what you can do is not to tell people who they are, is to show them how they link to other groups. You show them how they link to other groups. So Lee says, Witness Mdaga says the Tsonga people came after the Kwe people in SA. Before the other groups. They came from where? Where did the Tonga come from? I once heard that the Tonga came from Papua New Guinea. Oh, goodness. He says they came from where? Aluiva. Because if you listen to the Tonga language, you can hear it's the same thing that the Nguni people are speaking as well, especially those who use the Tekela speech. It's the same thing. So, came from where? I witness him tagger. He must stick to selling houses. Tell him I said so. He must just sell houses and shut up about Tonga people. Tonga people don't need him to speak for them. He knows nothing. He must sell properties and do whatever he does. That's again, that same thing I was saying. Those students in the classroom who were sitting at the back, now they want to tell everyone else where to get off, what to do with their lives. It's not going to work, guys. You guys must fight back. You guys, you take time to study these things. You take years to study. But you're going to be debating a guy who was telling the teacher, give me 0, ma'am. No. It just cannot be. We cannot allow that. No, we cannot allow that, guys, to continue now. This is why you've got presidents like Donald Trump, fake billionaires, fake trillionaires like Elon Musk. We can't allow stupidity to thrive. And we can't keep quiet. Witness Mdaga has no business talking about Tonga people. I don't give a damn. He must just shut the hell up. Must shut up. Go watch some dancing videos. There's dancing videos there. CPC stars, peanuts, Ghost Hlubi. Watch Ghost Hlubi or something. Leave it to us. Leave it to us. You're not ready for this. But he can come and learn now. We're not chasing people from learning. But to come and lie. Since when are these people interested in these things? I get it, these things were boring most for them. Tina, we've been doing this for 15 years. These things were boring to a lot of people. History, ethnic identity. Nobody wanted to talk about this. It was boring. When you were talking about this, you were seen as weird, So they must stick to those things that are cool. They must live this. Because now they are bringing the same stupidity that they do everything else with. The same stupidity that they've destroyed the country with, the same stupidity they conduct business with, the same stupidity that they destroy economies with, they want to bring it into history now. We're not going to allow that nonsense. We will protect the indigenous heritage of this land, from Mozambique to Cape Town, to Namibia, to Botswana, to Lesotho, to Eswatini. Amako. I want to tell a little story about Lowe. About Lowe, Matsieng. I want to tell a little story about Tik, about Tunikwab, about Haiseb. I want to tell a little story about Dulube. I want to tell a little story about Nkulunkulu. I want to tell a little story about Mlenze Munye or Mlentenga Munye. Please remind me to tell that story. Now, I was mentioning Twanatsazi on purpose because there was a guy who was asking there if I only talk about Nguni and whatever. Well, anyone who knows my work knows that we don't even... Nguni or Bakoni, for me, it's the same thing. It's the same people. Your Bakoni and Abenguni, it's the same people, you see. So, we don't go by that nonsense of apartheid groupings. When you talk about Nguni, when you talk about some groups within Botswana, some groups within Bapedi, It's the same thing, you know. Bafukeng, Bakwena, Bahurute, and Nguni. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Let me just, please remind me, guys, to talk about Lowe and Tiko again, because I'm gonna digress really now. I just want to touch on something before I talk about Jonathan. Then I go to Lowe. You see, amongst the Makhosa, the royal bloodline today is Chawe. When we explain what these things mean, people get confused. You see, the name Chawe means a salt pan in its purest sense. It's Chawe. You go to Kunkia, you go to Tswa. The name Chawe, it's Chawe. It means a salt pan. So what it means is, it really means that a place where there was water, the water dried up, and then there was left this surface, this floor, this bed of salt that has formed there when the water evaporated. That place is called Chawe. It's linked to the word chua or ikiwa or ikiwa. So it's Chawe. Even in Kunkia, the same word is Chawe. A synonym of the word Chawe is the word Kona. Kona. I repeat, the word Chawe has a synonym called Kona and a synonym called Chua. Listen properly. Listen properly. When you say Chawe, when you say Chua, when you say Kona in Kunkia, it's the same thing. It refers to a salt pan or fields or plains where there are salt pans. And therefore, people who live in these areas would then get these names. Now, in Botswana and Zimbabwe, you get people known as the Chwa. And you've got other people like Sili, Abasili, others like Shwakwe. It means the people of the salt pan areas. You even get Ichware, trees that grow or fields that have plains that have salt pans. That means little lakes that got evaporated and then salt pans were left. That's Chwa people. You look at that Chwa language, you look at isiXhosa, same thing. One. The language of the Chwa people is called Chwao, or Chwau. You go amongst the Watsonga, you find the Chwa. You find the Chwa amongst the Watsonga. You find Hlengwe, which is Khekwe or Khekwe, fire people amongst the Watsonga. You find Hlungwani and Chauke, who are those who take the fire. Shiokinzilo, those who take the fire. Boka umlilo, they take the fire from Eziko, Shitiko. You go to Kunkia, you find that same word, Chauki, to start, those who start fire. You go to Kunkia, you find that same word, Hlengwe, Khekwe. It's much more deeper than people realize. This is not about Tsonga or Zulu or Xhosa. It's the same thing. There's a thread that connects all these societies. Why do you think these societies have been able to pocket themselves in this region for thousands of years? Why do you think they were able to overlap amongst each other for so long? How do you think that Chivenda in Limpopo, you go to Cape, so-called Cape Kwe, you find words that are similar to Chivenda and Limpopo with the language that was spoken in Cape Town in the 1600s? How you think that's just an accident of geography? You go to some area in Eastern Cape, Ngogi in Kobonqaba, and then you look at the southern parts of Angola where the Qoqong people are staying, you look at their language, it's the same thing. It's because it's the same people spreading out, mixing together, intermarrying. And therefore, ultimately, if Europeans had not disturbed this process, what you would have is that this exact same society you find amongst the Maxhosa would be the exact same society you find amongst Amazulu. That would be the exact, it's going to be a replication of the same thing in different political structures. That's what would happen. Europeans disturbed it. It's a natural process that would have happened. This is exactly why the names of places you find in Namibia are the names of places you find in KZN. The same names you find in KZN are the same names you find in Eastern Cape. The same names you find in Eastern Cape are the same names you find in Mpumalanga. You have to study these things to see them. Don't be quick to argue with people you don't even know. You think it's a mistake that there's a place called Kwanza in Namibia and there's a place called Kwanzana in Eastern Cape. A place called Kakakus in South Africa at the border of Namibia and Botswana. And there's a place called Kakangu in Eastern Cape. Kunene in Namibia, Kunene in South Africa. Mhlanga in different provinces. It's the same names in all the different provinces. Sometimes the name is codified. Sometimes it loses the click. Sometimes it gains a click. You go there to Northern KZN. There's a place called Shushuwe there. Shushuwe in KZN is Kukuwe in Eastern Cape. Same thing. Same thing. Oh no, hey, people come from Congo. Shut the hell up, nigga. You don't know nothing. Why? Because people carry themselves wherever they are. They carry themselves. They carry themselves. The same names you find in Zimbabwe, you will find them here. You'll find them here. You know the old name of what is this place? Former King Williamstown is called Qonce now. Qonce is Xhosa. It's the same in Qinkia. It's Qonce. Qonce in Qinkia. It means a river with buffaloes. Another name of the same place in Kwemana, it's Ocha. Ocha, which means full of buffaloes. It's a Xhosa surname. Ocha. I know people with that surname. Ocha. You go to KZN and you find people with surnames like Dwabe. You know, Dwabe is literally the verb yes in Konkoni. It's the Kunka name for Nkokoni, Dwabe. You find people in KZN with the surname Nwabe, which is the wildcat. It's Nwabe or Nwab in Kunkia. You go to Eswatini, you hear them, they call the wildcat Inwa. Inwa. Come on, it's Mwa. So how is it then that such a massive landmass, South Africa is massive, you know, but somehow wherever you go, you are guaranteed to see the same thing repeating itself. Unless these people had the same original model of living. In that model of living, those who had cattle, they know how to live. Those who didn't have cattle, they go to the mountains, they forage, they do this. Those who are using the bow, in almost every society, you find the exact same thing. Amongst Vatsonga, there were bow masters, those who deal with the bow. That's why you'll also find the same musical instruments. Amongst these different groups, you'll find the same musical instruments. The same material culture, whether it's iron, whether it's metal, whether whatever precious metal, mining, you find the same material culture. The way they make clothing is similar. The way they dip it into iron ore, ochre, it's similar. The names of these things are similar. Basuthu, Batlori, it's Litsoku. The ochre, Litsoku. The Kora will say Choku. Choku. Basuthu, Litsoku. Amaxhosa, Choku. When you use ochre in the body, in the face, to decorate yourself, when it's just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence. The clothes come from Cameroon, man. How and why? I don't know, but they come from the Tanga. And Iswe. So now the name Chawe is Chawe. And then it went on to mean, because the Chawe were royals, ne? Therefore the name Chawe went on to mean a chief. It means a noble person. So in isiXhosa, if you call someone, Uli Chawe Mfondini, Uli Chawe, you're saying you're a chief, you're a king, my man. You're a lord. That's what you're saying to that person when you call them a Chawe. So nowadays it doesn't just mean the clan itself, but you know, it's generally used to mean a noble person. But a synonym of the word chawe is the word gona. In Kunkia, gona means a salt pan. And somehow within the Amachawe, there's a bloodline that's attached to them. The Konak. Why do you think in Kunkia a noble Mutswana is called Kona? Listen to the name Chwana and the name Kona. Chwa, salt pan. Kona, salt pan. Those who dwell in salt pan fields. Chwana, descendants of the Chwa people. Don't be confused by the name Tswana Tsatsi. That's a different one. Because if you go to Tswana Tsatsi now, you have to go back to understanding the name Tswa. Tswa means to appear. It means to come out. It means to rise. Tswa, like the sun rises. This is why another name for the sun in Kunkia is Chwala. Chwala bami. Kolele mzala. Waiketa maliam. It was such a nice song. Before Burna Boy came and messed it up. Ela kehle. Hey, what? Wayonakalisa ingoma uBurna Boy imnandi. Monday yishalawa. Tuesday yishalawa. Engathi inkunzi engihashe elingalaze likhatywe kude idonki imbongolo yase Nigeria yeIgborilla. Chwala come from the word chwa, the rising of the sun, and therefore it causes nganwa. It causes ungano. Interestingly, both chwala and ngan in Kunkia mean the sun. Chwala because it causes thirst because it's caused by the sun. So ngan and chwala both mean the sun. Nganwa and chwala is the thirst and what quenches the thirst. Chwala, the word chwa is to rise. In isiXhosa, when you respect the sun, uthi impakama, the chwa. That's right, Nabezit. Uthi impakama, the chwa. This is where the name chwa in Tswana Tsatsi comes in. You go to Kunkia, you go to Kora, you find the same name. We say chwa in Kora. We say chwa. This is also why the name for Table Mountain is Kareb. Hurikama kwa. Kareb hurikama kwa. That kwa is to rise. Hurikama is the sea. Kareb is the mountain. Kareb hurikama kwa. Mountain that rises from the sea. Table Mountain. Obviously, Cape Town is Cape. The meeting of the clouds. It's not Kapstad, Kap Yognunk. There's no Kapstad here. It's not Cape of Good Hope. It's Cape. No, it's Cape of Good Hope. It's got history. The name has history, guys. The name Cape of Good Hope has history. Don't change the name. Fix the drains. Fix the sewage system. Fix the sewage system, Luena. There in Khayelitsha. Fix the sewage system in Langa. Fix the sewage system in Imizamo Yethu, Hout Bay. Fix the sewage system in Masphumelele, Fishhook. Fix the sewage system in Ocean View. Fix the sewage system in Phoenix, Milnerton. Fix the sewage system in Joslovo, Milnerton. These names is not good for tourism. Come on, Angisalo. Come on, Ngatan Elban Chil. Elu Jordan Hill Louis Bakchomna. That's the Tswa part in Tswana Tsatsi. Tswa, to rise. Tsatsi, for the sun. We already mentioned this. That's why when we greet, we say, Haites. Haites. Tes is Litsatsi. Litsatsi. To shine. To shine. So Tswana Tsatsi, where the sun comes out and shine. Now, I said I'm gonna talk about. The reason why I talk about this is because the name Chwawe and the name Kona are also used for Tswana people. The name Kona is also used for Tswana people. They refer generally to salt pan dwellers. So there's a common history there that has to be explored. Now, Tswana Tsatsi has to the rising of the sun. You could say the name Tswana Tsatsi and the name Zalo Yelanga are connected. Now, the name for salt is Chuamos. In Chwao, the name for salt is Chwa. The name Chwa means salt pan. It's salt, Chwa. It's Chwa, Ichua. That's where Chwa comes in as well. Chwa. Or Jwa. Another name is Debe. Debe. Idebe. That's why we've got a place called a river called Debe, and another one Debecha. It's full of salt. That's what it means. Just like B is the milk, B is milk, but it also refers to the breast itself. That's why it's called Bele. So B is milk, Bicha, river full of milk, Bingala or Bingala, the abundance of milk. You know there's a river called Bingala. Bingala is milk water that is like abundant milk. You look at the water, it looks milky. Call that river Bingala. Okay. Now let's go back to what I wanted to share. Until the story sticks, I'm gonna keep on repeating it. I think it's a good story to tell. I was told this story when I was young. I don't remember all the details, but I know the story is about a bull called Dulube. Now, you must remember those stories were told as children, because now we are older. You must be able to interpret them for what they were. The bull is called Dulube. Some people call it Ntulube. It's not just a Xhosa story. Amampondo tell the story. I think Amazojo tell the story. I think some Amabhaca or Amacele used to tell the story. Ntulube and Dulube. I already told you what the name Dulube means. You go to Tramki or Tramkunkia, you find that name. Duru. It means to limp, to walk on one foot. This is absolutely pertinent to this story. The name Dulube means the one who's a limp, the one who walks on one foot. Very important fact. The meaning, Duru, you go to Kunkia, it means to limp. One foot. Already, from the meaning, you know the story of the one-legged. Patecha. Forgot now. Let me check the name. But you know there in Botswana, there's a cave there. There's a cave there in Botswana. Even in isiZulu, they will say umlenze munye. Umlenze munye. The one-legged one. Or umlente ngamunye. Tintibane, you also have that. Tintibane, pateche yaphathwa. Tiqwab. Tiqwab. Now, you will see that these names are linked because I just explained Tswana as the rising sun. Now I'm telling you that there's a story about Dulube, the one who has one leg. Ntintibane, Matieng, Mlenze munye, Mlente ngamunye. The word Mlenze munye means one leg, one-legged. Now, let's look at Tiqwab a bit closer. Let's give the name Tiqwab a closer look. the one that people call Tik. Now, obviously, there are many interpretations. But one of the interpretations I want to lean on today is Twi. Twi, painful. Gwab, knee. Twi gwab, painful knee. If we extend the semantics, Twi has to do with the word twis, which is reddish. And gwab has to do with the word tswa, which is to rise. The red rising one. Twi gwab. And the one-legged one. Now, red rising has to do with the morning sun. You see, the morning sun rises and it looks red. Umsobomv. And it is said to be the throne of the ancient one. Twiqab, the one-legged one. Tik. It's interesting because Nele Makanda, he went to Gompo in the 1800s. He told the people to stand on one leg and call out to Tik and say, die, die. Why would Nele tell them to stand on one leg and talk to Twiqab in the sea and say, die? Die means benevolent one, good one. It's a codification of Khai. Khai. That's why when you say Kacha or Kaicha or Kecha, it's also Taka or Tsaka or Tacha. Also Teka or Techa. So what you have here is the same entity in different names. Matieng, Lowe, Mlenze Munye, Mlendenga Munye, Mkulu. This is considered one of the early ancestors, or at least an ancient king or an ancient shaman who had these magical abilities. Don't be rigid with interpretation, because different groups will interpret it differently. But one common theme is that this is an ancient being. Some even say our original ancestor. Now, this story that I was told about Dulube meets these characters known as the Gongong. I link this clearly to another Kwe story where Haiseb meets with these characters known as the Gonghanib. Now, the name Haiseb is important because it's a nickname.